People ask me, what do you think about this recent Bitcoin price drop? And like my answer is like, this is looking kind of dangerous now. Whenever there's a bull market, it convinces some old hands to sell their coins. And either maybe they're rebalancing, maybe they're upping their lifestyle. But either way, that they're having a lot of exit liquidity, they're taking it.
This market analysis features a major update from Lyn Alden, where she talks about her latest thoughts on Bitcoin. In this interview, she offers an updated price prediction for this year and explains the reasons behind a potential surge in this market cycle. Plus, she dives into the network's value and its ongoing exponential growth. If you're new here, we hope you'll subscribe by the end of the video.
And even Larry Fink mentioned like something as high as $700,000 Bitcoin. So do you generally agree or disagree with these ranges? And what could be some of the biggest or most obvious catalysts in your mind?
I think we'll see, low six figures. I mean, we've already touched it, but I mean, like further into the low six figures, like some of the early numbers you referenced, with the
Mhm.
caveat that, there are various big Boolean outcomes that can happen that can drive you to much higher prices in a shorter period of time. Um, I tend to expect this cycle to probably be a little longer than average. That's kind of where my current view is. If you asked me a year ago, I would have said maybe not, but currently I'm thinking that this cycle might be a little longer, and that maybe the trade-off is that it's less explosive in any given part of that. And so, some of the numbers you referenced, maybe we see it next year. I think as we've kind of shifted more toward fiscal dominance, you could have a more sustained, longer running issue. Like watching gold, if you look at the gold over TLT chart, so gold over long duration treasuries, it's just been grinding up for like so long. Um, and even there are periods where gold kind of pauses, but then treasuries kept falling. So that ratio was like surprisingly smooth and upward. Um, Bitcoin could kind of surprise to the upside, not in terms of like explosive magnitude, but in terms of just like how long it goes this time. Even that's not a high conviction view. I mean, anything can happen. I kind of look at it just over time. I kind of think, okay, well, do we have danger signs yet? And I look at various indicators like, market capitalization compared to on-chain cost basis. Is that extraordinarily high levels? No. It's kind of looks like the mid cycles looked in prior cycles. I look at things like the HODL wave, how much, whenever there's a bull market, it convinces some old hands to sell their coins. And either maybe they're rebalancing, maybe they're upping their lifestyle. But either way, that they're having a lot of exit liquidity, they're taking it. So far, this HODL wave has been smaller than prior cycle endings, meaning that the price action's not been enough to get a similar amount of coins to rotate to new hands as we saw in prior cycles. Doesn't mean every cycle has to be the same. But in general, I think we probably have much higher to go in the cycle. I'd expect 150 to, hopefully. Um, and then when we hit those levels, I'd have to see, well, what does it look like? I mean, if you go there in 6 weeks and the market cap compared to the on-chain cost basis is now like super high ratio, I'd be okay, this is looking kind of dangerous now. Whereas if we see that figure in 18 months and we've seen the cost basis go up and it's been this more orderly incline upward, then I might be more bullish and say, well, maybe I think we still have higher to go. So kind of conservative targets, which is funny when you hear conservative because it's like, I mean, calling for a double in the next couple of years is like conservative in Bitcoin terms, but that'd be amazing for any other asset.
Mhm.
With then caveats that sure, I mean, as a scarce asset, and as something that big governments can change their opinions on, then sure, you can have far more explosive actions. One thing I do in my research publications is I have some model portfolios that are kind of they're traditional portfolios with a slight tweak to them. And one thing I've generally done is say like, at the bond side, because I've been bearish on bonds for like 5 years, I say, well, let's take out some of the bonds and put it in gold for like a similar volatility profile but better. And then I
Mhm.
said, well, for some of the equities, let's take some equity chunk and put it into Bitcoin because they did research on Bitcoin and decided this is a high probability network to keep appreciating in value, and it's outperformed most equities. Um, and so that's the approach I've taken. And I've done higher than that BlackRock figure. But for example, the number that I put in a quote unquote traditional, portfolio is different than my own personal number. As someone who's immersed in the ecosystem, has written a book that's partially on the subject, um, I'm comfortable, and in my age, I'm comfortable with a fairly high allocation. In addition, appreciate when it appreciates and you just don't sell, that can just automatically give you much higher allocation. It doesn't mean you necessarily you put that much in to begin with or that much of a percentage in to begin with. So I think that yeah, we start with the basics of get off zero, and then have it more normal for portfolios to have a Bitcoin slice, and it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%. But when you look at the sheer size of the capital involved, that's actually huge. If you're going to put 2% of your portfolio in, like, what's the point? Like, like
Yeah.
how many other high conviction investments are you going to get? So I would say that the quote unquote traditional equity, the traditional portfolio is kind of like when you're not conviction about anything. It's like you have no views of the future and you just kind of say, oh, I want stocks and bonds and gold and Bitcoin and foreign stocks and all mixed up together. When someone puts 100 hours into something and says, you know what, I think, so this is 10 years ago, you think Apple stock's going to do amazing. I want to own Apple. Or you look at Bitcoin, you say, you know what, I think Bitcoin still is one of the best bets over the next 5, 10 years. I want to over allocate to it. That's the approach that I take. Um, but that's not the traditional equity, the traditional portfolio view. So I think that small allocation in a traditional portfolio as a baseline makes sense, and then dial it up if you actually have conviction. And so I think it is good that we're finally seeing, multiple companies in multiple countries adopt this. I think it's going to continue.
Bitcoin's market today is calm but cautious. Its price has stayed relatively steady, showing no big jumps or drops. Trading activity remains active, with many investors buying and selling, but most are being careful rather than bold. The main reason for this quiet mood is uncertainty about global economic trends, such as changing interest rates and financial market stress. These factors make traders hesitant to take risks. Since Bitcoin often leads the rest of the crypto market, its stable behavior is helping to keep other digital coins steady as well. Overall, it's a day of balance. Not much excitement, but plenty of quiet, watching and waiting. Wish someone taught you Bitcoin earlier? Now's your chance to do better for your kids or young family. This teen ebook is perfect. Link in the description.